Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Shabbos Daf Pei Dalid begins in the middle of a discussion about why a ship cannot become tamei. We will then branch into a proof which is relevant to one of those two opinions. We'll bring two Mishnayos to prove that, and then the Gemara will start a new related subject, which is the rules of Tumas Medris, the Tumah that is of transfers to something that he sits on. This will be a lengthy discussion, which will take us to the Mishnah. The Mishnah will switch to a totally different subject, which is that of Kilayim, the prohibition against planting fruits and vegetables too close to each other. So first of all, let's remember what we're in the middle of discussing. We had seen a Mishnah yesterday on Daf Pei Gimel, which said that a ship is not Makabel Tumah. The Gemara had given two reasons. One was from a Mishnah, one was from Chananya. So it's the Rabbanan and Chananya. According to the Rabbanan, it's because it is connected to the sea, and therefore any ship of any type, in any size, cannot be Makabel Tumah because of its scriptural source that links it to the sea itself. According to Chananya, it's only because it's made out of wood and it's too big to be Makabel Tumah. Nothing that's made out of wood could be Makabel Tumah if it's too big to be moved when it's full, to be carried when it's full, is what he says. Therefore, it only applies to a wooden ship that's very large. If you have a small ship, or if you have a ship made out of cheres, earthenware, then it would be able to be Makabel Tumah. So now the Gemara discusses Hanani's opinion. The Gemara says Hanani said that something which is wooden and too large to be moved or carried on dry land is not Makabel Tumah. The Gemara now says if it could only be carried by means of animals pulling it, that counts as being carried. So something which is too big to be carried by people, but it's small enough for oxen or some such animals to drag it, that counts as carrying, and therefore it would be Makabel Tumah. And now the Gemara says I'm going to prove this to you. I'm going to prove it by bringing two Mishnayos from Masechta Kelim. One is going to prove that a wooden wagon can be Makabel Tumah, and the other one is going to prove to you that this is referring to a very large wooden wagon that you couldn't drag yourself, and you would need oxen to drag it. So let's see. So the first Mishnah discusses three types of wagons. It says that there's one type of wagon which is Makabel Tumas Midris. Tumas Midris means that a Zav or a Nida sits upon an object which is either designed for sitting upon, or if he sits on it, it doesn't interfere with its regular use. So what type of wagon would be Makabel this type of Tumah? A wagon designed for transporting humans. Okay, that's a Zav is meant to sit on that, and therefore it's Makabel Tumas Medris from a Zav sitting on it. Now, another type of wagon is a wagon used for transporting objects, like a truck. So a Zav should not be sitting on that, and if he does, he interferes with its use. Therefore, it's not Makabel Tumas Medris Zav. It can become Tamei through other types of Tumah, such as contact with a corpse or a sheretz or something like that. Okay. The third type is a wagon which was used for moving stones. That didn't even have a solid flat floor. It was made out of beams, and the stones were rested across them. So therefore, there is no base kibble. There is no convex-shaped area that can actually hold something. It's just flat. It's flat wooden sticks, and the rule is that flat wooden sticks are never tamei. Now comes Rabbi Yochanan, and this is the key point. Rabbi Yochanan says that if that wooden wagon used for transporting stones has a little piece in it which is a cup shaped and is big enough to hold a pomegranate, then it is Makabel Tumah, because it's no longer flat wooden sticks, it actually has a cup shaped area. So now, this proves that this wooden wagon can be Makabel Tumah in some circumstance if it has a cup shape. Now this wooden wagon is too big to be carried by people, and that we're going to prove from a second Mishnah. The second Mishnah says there are three types of tevois, three types of boxes or chests, dressers, as far as Hilchos Tumah. One which opens at the top, that cannot become Tamei Tumas Medris, because if a Zav sits on it, it won't be you will not be able to use it. It can only have Tumas Mace or Tumas Shratzim or other types of contact Tumah. If, however, it opens at the side, then a Zav can sit on it, it won't interfere with your use, and therefore that's okay. Now, if, however, you have a very large chest, it's too big, then it's not Makabel Tumah at all. because it's too big to move. Now, comparing the two Mishnayos, we see that the second Mishnah says that something which is too big is not Mekabel Tumah. But it doesn't say that about wagons. It doesn't say a wagon that's too big to move is not Mekabel Tumah. What if there's a wagon that you can't carry? Obviously, that is Mekabel Tumah. How could that be? Because it can still be dragged by oxen. So you see that even a wagon, which is too big for a human to carry, as long as it's a wagon, which means that it can be pulled, is still susceptible to being Mekabel Tumah. Okay, this ends this discussion. And now the Gemara has a brisa, which talks about klei cheres. And the Gemara is going to try to understand the brisa. We're going to have two versions of what the brisa means, and then we're going to launch into a discussion of tumas medris, the tumah that a zav transfers to something that he sits upon. So first of all, what does the brisa say? The brisa has a Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi. The Tanakama says that a kli cheres, an earthenware kli, is not susceptible to tumas medris at all. If a zav sits on it without touching it, it will not become tamei. Tumas medris is only without touching. If the zav touches it, he is matamei. But the transfer of tumah by sitting upon something without touching it, that does not apply to earthenware kalim at all. Rabbi Yossi says, also a boat. Now, what do you mean also a boat? Also a boat what? He could not have meant that a boat is also not Mekabel Tumah, because we already know that. There was a Mishnah that says that it's not Mekabel Tumah at all. So if he wants to say a boat is not Mekabel Tumah's medras, he's not adding anything. So the Gemara therefore says you have to reread this brisa. There's a phrase missing here, and we have two opinions as to how to reread it. It's Rav Zvid and Rav Papa. They both say that we have to add something in, that the Tanakama was saying that earthenware kalim are not susceptible to tumas medrash, but something is. And the argument is what? And on that, Rav Yossi adds his statement, and he's disagreeing with something that the Tanakama said. Now it's interesting because both understandings of this brisa are going to say that the machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and the Tanakama is the very same machlokes between Hanania and the Chachamim that we had earlier, as to whether there is tumah on a ship which is either not made out of wood or it's small. Okay, so how do we read this? So Rav Zvid said it's as follows. The Tanakama says that an earthenware kli is not susceptible to tumas medras. However, it is susceptible to tumah by contact. Now, a ship is also susceptible to tumah by contact. And on that, Rav Yossi says, no, a ship is not susceptible to tumah, even if it's a kli cheres. Okay, so again, the Tanakama said that a earthenware ship is not susceptible to tumah, even if it's made out of cheres, and Rav Yossi said it is. That's the machlokes we had earlier. It's not made out of wood, so according to Hanania, it would be susceptible to tumah, and according to Rabbi Yossi, it is not mekabel tumah. Okay, now Rav Papa doesn't like this because he says there is no also. Rabbi Yossi had said also a ship. There is no also. He's arguing. He's saying a ship is not mekabel tumah, but the Tanakam didn't list anything which is not mekabel tumah. He just said that a kli cheres is not mekabel tumah's medras. Rabbi Yossi is not talking about medras. He's talking about something else. So therefore, Rabbi Papa says you have to reread it as follows. The Tanakama says as follows: kli cheres is not mekabel tumah. However, a wooden kli is mekabel tumah. And a kli cheres is also mekabel tumah if you touch it. Not mekabel tumah's medrash, but it is mekabel tumah's contact. Wooden kli is also mekabel tumah's contact. And a boat, even a small boat which goes in the river, is also not mekabel tumah. And on that, Rabbi Yossi says, no, it also is mekabel tumah. So there's your also. So what do we end up with as follows here? We end up with Rav Papa is saying that according to the Tanakama, a small boat that's made out of wood is not mekabel tumah because it's too small. And Rabbi Yossi says, no, that boat also is mekabel tumah even though it's small. And that's what he's disagreeing with. And again, this is dependent on a machlokes between Hanania and the Rabbanan, whether a small boat is mekabel tumah because it's not excluded from tumah by its size, or the fact that it's a boat altogether makes it not able to be mekabel tumah. Okay, now the Gemara says you just told me in the brisa that any kli cheres, any earthenware kli cannot be mekabel tumas zav medras. If a zav sits on it without touching it, he's not matami. The Gemara says, how do you know this? The Gemara has two sources, two very similar sources. One is a pasuk referring to a zav, one is a pasuk referring to a nida. They both link the person to the bed that he lies upon, and we say that the link teaches the following thing: just like the person becomes tar when they go to the mikvah, the bed that he's lying upon is only included in this entire discussion if it could become tahar when it goes to the mikvah. However, an earthenware object cannot become tahar in a mikvah. Since it can't become tahar in a mikvah, it is not included. It's not similar to the zav and to the nida, and therefore it is out of the entire parsha. And when a zav sits on it, it's not becoming a tamei at all. What are the two psukim? As far as the zav, Chizki says "V'isha sheyiga b'mishkavei" connects the man and his mishkavei and his thing that he lies upon, and my nida, it says Kemishav Nidasi Allah, connects her and her mishkav, what she lies upon, and therefore we have the drasha. The Gemara now has a kasha on these two sources, and then a third source, which is not susceptible to the kasha. In between, the Gemara will answer the kasha. So, kasha is that Rav Elai says that you're telling me that anything which cannot be put into the mikvah to be tahar is not susceptible to tumas medris. It's not true, because there's a reed mat, a wooden mat, which cannot it cannot have tahara in a mikvah. Anything which is made out of wood and does not have a base kibul, any cup-shaped area, is not tahar in a mikvah, and yet it is still makabe tumas medris. I have a brisa that even says I can learn from there that since it's makabel tumas medris, it can also be makabel tumas meis through kabel chaimer. So obviously you're wrong. So even something which can't go in the mikvah could have tumas medris. So Gemara says Rav Chanina said to Rav Elai, no. The point is not that the object itself could go in the mikvah. The point is that the object's material could go in the mikvah. This wooden mat can't go in the mikvah because it doesn't have a cup shape, but wood that does have a cup shape could go into the mikvah and become tahar. Since the material of wood has tahar in the mikvah, tumas medris applies. Something like cheres, however, the entire material can never become tahar in the mikvah. Nothing made out of cheres can ever become tahar in the mikvah. That does not have tumas medris. So the Gemara says, Rav Elai said, "Rachmana litzlan, Hashem yirachem, God save us from such a pshat. That's horrible." Rav Chanina says, "No, Rachmana litzlan, God save us from your pshat." Someone says, what is Rav Chanina's source? How does he know that it applies to the material? That as long as the material can go in the mikvah, it is susceptible to tumas medris. I would have thought that it's a din in the object itself. So the Gemara says, he says it because you have two contradictory psukim. One compares the object that a zav lies onto the zav himself, and one keeps them separate, right? One is the one we saw so far, which says that a zav which lies on his mishkav, and there's a different one that says any mishkav that a zav lies on. It's not comparing it to him. It's not his mishkav. So you have a contradiction. Does the mishkav have to be like the zav and have tahara in the mikvah or not? And the answer is that we compromise. We say that it has to be that its material has tahara in the mikvah, but it itself does not have tahara in the mikvah. Okay, the Gemara leaves it at that. Now the Gemara says I have a third source for this halacha that kli cheres doesn't have tumas medris, and that's because the pasuk tells me that the only way that a kli cheres can become tummy is if something goes inside it. Tuma has to be inside it, either touching or not touching. But if you have a sealed kli cheres, it can never become tummy. Now hold on a second. It can never become tummy because nothing can go inside. But what about tumas medris? What if somebody uses a sealed kli cheres as a chair? So then it should have tumas medris. Obviously, kli cheres can never have tumas medris. This takes us to the end of this discussion, and now we go to the Mishnah. The Mishnah discusses the halacha of kilayim, which is the rule that you are not allowed to plant different types of fruits or vegetables of certain types too close to each other. Now, the Mishnah says that if you have a 6 by 6 square of ground, 6 by 6 tfachim, you can fit in 5 different types of vegetables there, one along each side, just not in the corners, and one in the center. Why is that work? Because you need to have one of two things between them. You have to have that either the different types of vegetables are perpendicular to each other, or they're spaced 3 tfachim apart. So the ones on the 4 sides are all perpendicular to each other as long as the corners are left empty. Therefore, you don't have a problem there. And the one that's in the center is going to be 3 tfachim from all the other ones because the entire square is 6 tfachim wide. The 3 tfachim space is so that the roots, which each extend a tefach and a half, do not intermingle. And the idea of the perpendicular and the spacing is that they should not appear to be mixed. Now, what the Mishnah says is that you actually can derive this from a hint from a pasuk which says Ki ka'aretz taitzid simcha ukeganaz royeha tatzmiach, Now, Zra'eha is plural. It's not Zar'a. And therefore, we have the following hint. We have 5 different vegetables that are referred to here. It says Tzimcha is one. It says Toitzi, that's another one. Zeruah is plural, that's 2 more, is 4. And Tatzmiach is the 5th.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.